Big round of applause for Mari. So thank you everybody for coming to tonight's Bhakti night. Anybody here for the first time? We're all friends here. So thank you so much for coming.
Hopefully not the last time.
All the old friends here.
Old
so
friends.
We have
Old and young.
we have a very special guest. His Holiness Janananda Goswami.
I'm here for the first time. That's the first time.
Janananda. Give a big round of applause for coming.
It's really I've actually been here to New York many times, but maybe not in this.
Not in this space.
In this space.
This space is brand new. One month old. Wow. So Maharaj joined the International Society for Krishna Consciousness in 1972, and he was a student or a disciple of our teacher, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and he's traveled and spread this practice of Bhakti Yoga all throughout the world, in places like Malaysia, Europe, Africa, India, New Zealand, Australia, and then now Maharaj is mainly based in France, but he still travels the world and tries to share Bhakti all over the world. So I'm always a big fan of Maharaj for his wit, his humor, and he's very he's one of the most gentlest people that I've met. So let's give a big round of applause to Janananda.
Hare Krishna. We haven't met many people yet, obviously. Hare Krishna. We're just little tiny jivas. Jiva means souls. Everybody here has been before. We've just heard that. You all been before? You've been before? Yeah, so you're not completely new to the scene. We're all searchers. Everyone in the world, as you could say, is a searcher. I'm made in England. We were made in England, and for much of our life, as we just mentioned, has been around the world, here and there. We were brought up in England. We joined the Hare Krishna movement in London, and been trying to do a little service for the last 50 or so years. Service is such a spontaneous, natural thing for all of us. We may reject the ideas sometimes, but service is so nice to serve, even materially. I remember shortly before I came across the Hare Krishna people, in 1971, I was attending a music festival in Glastonbury, famous festival, Music Fest, in 1971, and for a while there we were distributing free food to people who obviously were hungry. And you've all probably done much, much more than that, but it's just a little example. A pleasure. One gets more pleasure in seeing others satisfied, seeing others pleased, to bring pleasure to others. Materially, we could say that there's not necessarily a big gain, it's only a temporary gain. There may be some good reaction for that, known as karma. There may be some good reaction, but it's still only temporary. But still one gets some pleasure out of that. A mother gets pleasure out of serving her child, or lovers serving each other, friends. Even sometimes, if you have the heart for this, you may get pleasure serving your country. Not everyone feels the same way, but those who do feel pleasure. You get pleasure from different activities which we could say are compatible to our particular nature also. But beyond that, whatever nature we're in, I see regularly on the streets of Paris, for instance, there are many, what do you call them, street people. They live in the street. Mm-hmm. You have perhaps a rather derogatory term, sometimes we all do, but people who live on the street, they have no official home, and they have no official income, and they're living, from day to day. They also get pleasure in sharing whatever they've got. Sometimes we see, be it a cigarette or a bottle of wine or something or another. It's a natural thing to share. It's a natural thing because we're all looking for compatible relationships. And naturally we tend to feel comfortable with people who are similar nature, something compatible. Everyone's looking for that. But this service mentality is understood to be part of our very being, the nature of the very self, the conscious self. The conscious self uses his body either to serve its own senses or to serve others, but always serving, just like you may go walking on the street. There's some desire, some objective maybe there. It's a form of service. You're serving your mind, you're serving your senses, you're serving your whatever it is. But everyone's serving in one way or another. Whether we like it or not, everyone serves in different ways, no doubt. And that's all it is. When the mention was there just now, what was his name? I've forgotten. Vidai? Hadai Pandit?
Yes.
Hadai, what a nice name. Had I mentioned, I didn't mention, he mentioned, had I, Prabhu mentioned just now Bhakti Yoga. And of course, if you're a newcomer to this scene, you may not know what Bhakti means. It's a common word in some parts of the world. If you've, like in Indonesia, Malay. Anyone here from Indonesia, Malaysia? No?
I've been there though.
You've been there. Philippines, yeah. You're from Philippines. You're the Filipino man here.
No, I'm from Taiwan.
Taiwan.
Yeah.
It was a good guess, but there's a little difference between.
But everybody.
It's all the same. Everything over there. Malaysia is in Africa. Isn't
We
it?
all look the same.
Malaysia, isn't that in Africa? Somewhere next to South Africa, I think, isn't it? Malaysia. Is that country in Africa next to South Africa? Oh no, that's Malawi, not Malaysia. Because many people don't even know where it is.
Yeah, Malaysia is next to Singapore.
Oh yeah, next to
Indonesia,
Singapore,
they're
yeah.
all like,
And Singapore's
Yeah,
next
I
to
went
Malaysia.
there.
Singapore's next to Malaysia as well.
yeah, when I was in high school.
Yeah. So there, the word bhakti also means like service. Yeah.
We don't have that concept in Chinese culture.
No, service. But you're serving whether you like it or not.
We do have service, but we don't have the word bhakti.
No, that's the word in their language. Bhakti is a little deeper than just service. Service is almost obligatory. We don't like it. I mean, many times we don't. Why should I serve? We'll say that's not an unusual response. And we understand why, and we've all been through it, I guess you could say. But it's an unavoidable aspect of life. We may be forced or voluntary or spontaneous or with some, imposition of our own, whatever it may be, but there's a natural concept to serve. It's just a matter of the nature of the service. There's service in different ways. I mean, I saw on the street coming here today from the airport, there were at most of the lights, you call them lights, traffic lights, there was somebody there, I guess they're begging, some poor looking person begging. And was that a rock concert downstairs?
That's a train, a subway.
Oh, there's a subway underneath. Okay. You have to make a direct entrance so you can jump on the train straight.
Like a low.
Amazing, huh? It makes a lot of noise, huh?
Yeah, it's only in this part.
Oh.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Service. You can't really avoid it, but it's a matter of, as I say, people were told, they were told, if you've got money, you should give it. It's kind of a nice thought, nice mindset in one sense, but it also depends in which direction you give it. The principle of giving is good, that's for sure. But we have to also bear in mind a little bit what the benefit, the big benefit is of that. There's a temporary benefit, a long-term benefit, and a permanent benefit. So the temporary benefit, maybe that person feels good and you may feel a bit good too. It doesn't last. Maybe who knows what they spend it on. One person told me today, we don't want money, we don't want food, we want money. They say they're hungry, you give them food and they want money. I've seen that in many places like that. They don't want the food, although they say they're hungry. They want money. What they do with it, we won't speculate, but I've seen in many cases they've used it on liquor, drugs sometimes, cigarettes. Not very beneficial things, you could say, at least from the point of view of their consciousness, their real consciousness. So how to help people, how to serve others. We want to serve. The word bhakti means, it goes deeper than just service, it means devotional service. And the word devotion nowadays is used rather lightly. Sometimes people say, I don't know the name of the local football team here. They have American football here, isn't it? Is that right? American football?
I don't really get into that.
You don't follow. You're from Taiwan. So
Yeah.
But if
Soccer
you're
is becoming also popular.
excuse me?
Soccer is also becoming popular.
Soccer is becoming popular, is it? Okay, well I'm from England, so it's soccer in England, it's a big thing. And they say I'm a devotee of, Manchester United if you're in England. What does it mean? It's not really, it's a very kind of shallow concept. You may be attached to it, but it goes a bit deeper than that. The word bhakti, devotion. It has to be backed up with some understanding and a relationship which is more than just a conditional one. Bhakti, in other words, you change your focus in this world sometimes because of the changing world. As you grow older, as the world changes, as people's moods towards us change, or you find out they weren't what you thought they were, or your team becomes a loser all the time, you can easily change your faith, or even with religions, people change their faith. It's not devotion. Devotion is based on a reality. It's not based on just a hope. It's not just based on a kind of a doctrine or dogma, not a doctrine. It's based on a reality, the nature of the self, to find the nature of the self, or who we are, and then naturally to understand, what the constitution is. When you know the constitution of something, then we know what it's for. What is it used for? Or what is it meant to be for? So the living entity also has that means the conscious person. We have this body, mind, intellect, and what have you, which we are no doubt attached to and working with, and maybe identifying with. And their identity may be focused mostly on the bodily or mental plane. Generally that's the case. But beyond that, the conscious person who is witnessing, his body in a sense is both that which is seen and the means of seeing. For instance, the eyes, the nose, the ears, they're the means of seeing through which the conscious being is witnessing the objects around us. There also, we have the mind. The mind is also another sense. We have 6 primary senses, these nose and the tongue and the ears, and the eyes and the touch. And then we have the mind. The mind is really speaking with all the various, you can say, messages or indications come through the media of the physical brain. The mind experiences various effects. The brain is a mechanical, chemical construction, cellular, but the mind is You can say the mind's actually more than that, but it picks up all these messages, and accordingly we feel different things: pleasure, pain, excitement, depression, all kinds of, so many people feeling depression because we're not compatible. We're not living our lives compatible with the world around us. Something's incompatible. So in one sense, it's very important that we try to find that compatibility, which means, what is our nature? We have two kinds of natures. One is the physical, one is the spiritual. They're related. The physical nature, what is our actual, what have we inherited? What have we inherited? Our nature of our consciousness, the nature of our body, mind and senses, etc. And trying to find a situation which is, you say, most suitable for their engagement. We always try to find places or foods or music or something or another which seems to gel with us, so to speak. We try. And materially speaking, we do all have differences, but we all have similarities also. And we do have situations which are more beneficial for us. Different occupations, different places, different people to associate with, even different colors. Finding a color which is most suitable for, let's say, our benefit, not just because we're depressed, not something that necessarily corresponds with an unnatural situation or an incompatible situation, but something will help us to find ourselves. And then beyond that is the spiritual nature, or the spiritual constitution. And that's the permanent feature. That's the one, when we talk of bhakti, it's directed not just towards the service to the mind, the body and the senses, but towards the soul, towards the person, that which is eternal, that which is permanent, not just something temporary. So that is bhakti. Other services are not discouraged, but the essential, most valuable for every living entity which can satisfy all of our hankerings. Everyone, I presume everyone in this world is looking for some kind of happiness, peace of some kind. That will vary according to one to the next, but a situation which is peaceful from their perspective at least. Everyone's looking for relationships of a loving kind, be it with a partner, be it with a friend, be it with a relative, be it with a dog or whatever it may be. But everyone's looking for relationships. So these are things which are natural, both in the material and spiritual plane. In the material plane, relationships result in happiness and distress. Once the relationship is broken or one's life comes to an end, the relationship may itself, of course, it's still there in the heart, but it can cause great pain because it's based on a temporary factor. It's not based on the eternal factor or the spiritual factor. So bhakti is the activity which helps us to understand our spiritual relationship, our spiritual nature. And consequently, it doesn't suffer or it doesn't have the consequences of the material relationships which we develop or try to develop, which are temporary and wrought with frustration, etc. Whatever situation we're in the world today, anyone can apply bhakti yoga. Anybody. Doesn't matter who we are. We may be living in the street. Last year, I remember, and this month is coming up, it's December. I like to go on to the city during December and just chant Hare Krishna as much as I can. And it's never mind, even the age, it doesn't matter. It takes you above the platform of the age or the bodily condition when we chant. It's another world. I like to chant. We also share these wonderful books about the process of bhakti yoga with others. There's one man who's lying there on the footpath all day. He loves the chanting. He's a street man. He just lives on the street. But he loves the chanting. We give him wonderful foodstuffs, we call prasadam, and he loves it. He loves the books. He's got all of our books. He takes the books every time. Whether he gives a penny or a dime or not, doesn't matter. We just love to give him the books because he loves them. Never mind, he's chanting. He's whatever his consciousness is, whatever his state of life is, he's practicing Bhakti Yoga. He's on the path. He's accepting this little gift of love. And anyone can do that. Even a dog can chant. I was giving someone a book today. I have one book called Animals in Krishna Consciousness, which I put together many decades ago. And it's about various animals, dogs, cows, cats, and all kinds of birds and this and that, who are just incredible people. Oh, that's strange. We say people we think is humans, but we take it beyond the human platform. Wherever there's life, there's a person. There's a person there, conscious being. And to see how some of these animals, everyone knows if you've got a pet dog or a pet cat, it's not just you don't say that's just a dog. It's a person. You have a relationship that you can see his personality is so clear when you live with them. How they respond, their various, pulses and so on, are very clear. You can see the difference between different dogs, how they've got different characters. Just as much as a human being, they just don't express it in the same way. Maybe it's not so developed intellectually, but it's the same basic principle in that form of a dog or a bird or any creature come to that. So to see that is so wonderful. So people have, same thing. We're all looking for that happiness, that relationship, that freedom from suffering, and so on. But it's very hard to find it in this material world. Very hard. Even if we get it for a little while, how long it lasts. But the happiness is within our very being. If we only can open our hearts a little bit and allow that relationship to awaken, to blossom. And that's the process of Bhakti Yoga. Even a dog can practice it. We've had so many dogs and cats and other creatures actively, voluntarily participating in Bhakti Yoga, believe it or not. They don't sit with their legs crossed. They don't stand on their heads. Maybe they do. But that's not yoga. Yoga, the word yoga means to link up. It means to reconnect our inner self with the Supreme Self. To develop that high, topmost relationship. Loving relationship. Service usually indicates a master. But in Bhakti, yes, that's there. But the master is also servant. The master serves the servant. Our whole principle is based on that. Servant, servant, servant. And it's so pleasing to the self. And it brings unity and happiness. And the relationship ever increasing. It doesn't have to fade away. It's unconditional. It is not depending on any material factor. We may utilize material factors. It doesn't depend on it. Whether they're there or not, Bhakti continues. Devotion continues. And yoga, linking up through devotion, is the way which is the most natural, especially in the day we live in. It's very hard for people to practice the strict principles of other lines of yoga. It's possible, but it's very difficult. The lifestyle that we lead, the association that we have to hold, the world, the environment that we're living in, the state of our minds. Many of us have had traumas in life of various kinds. We may have all kinds of challenges there in the mind, mental or physical plane. Is not a disqualification for Bhakti. Not at all. It can actually work in our favor. We may become humble, and of a humble heart we may realize that who am I? You know, it may be an incentive to take shelter of bhakti, even, of devotion. Devotion to the Supreme Person, Supreme Being. And that includes all living entities. It includes well-wisher of all living entities. Everyone. To see everyone happy, to see unity. Our spiritual teacher, Srila Prabhupada, one of his main, I could say, I don't know what the word is, main desires is unity, to bring unity. There is diversity, there's nothing wrong with diversity. To bring the unity into that diversity, so we can see the common brotherhood of all living entities. Instead of seeing all the differences, which are obvious, and fighting over various conditional perspectives. We all have our own perspectives, our own opinions on things, but to see beyond that, to understand things beyond that relative perspective. Right now in the world today, as it always is actually, there's nothing new, although it may be a different place, different people involved, but there are wars going on, there's clashes going on over different doctrines, etc. This is always in the material world like this. The nature of the material world is duality, this quarrel, because we're seeing things from our own perspective. But what is our own perspective? It's a material perspective right now. When we see things from a spiritual perspective, things come into focus. It's like our eyesight. Right now I have my eyes closed, and whatever I can see is within. But when I open my eyes, then of course we can see something around us, it becomes clearer. If I never open my eyes, I can only more or less speculate what's going on around me, or whatever I hear, or whatever vibration I feel. When we open our eyes, we have a clearer picture. So when we open our eyes, meaning when our hearts open a little bit, beyond the coverings, beyond the traumas, beyond the conditioning of our lives. And the easiest way recommended to do that, there are many processes, but the easiest way is this, hearing this sound vibration. Sound vibration is so powerful. Material sound vibration is just like just now, the sound of the siren, it may be an ambulance or whatever, going past us, a very penetrating sound. It's meant to be, has a purpose. Every sound affects our consciousness. Most sounds are material. They may disturb us. You could get disturbed by the sound of the subway, or the sound of the siren, or the sound of someone screaming. Sometimes even a baby screaming disturbs us, or a particular kind of music disturbs us. Or it may make us happy. Sound has a profound effect on our consciousness. But back and forth, the dualities of this world. But the sound of the mantra which we just chanted, I'm familiar, as I said to you, at one program the other day, I was born on a railway line. I could throw a little stone onto the railway train. I didn't, but I could have done. Which is a stone's throw from the railway track, where we were born in a little tiny house, in a poor place, in a poor town at that time. And you just get used to what you've got to a certain extent, but there's so much more to get. We may think, oh, there's no hope. There's all hope. There's great hope. We just have to look there. The process of bhakti is to help us to find what we're looking for. That love and inner relationship with the greatest of personalities. And that can be awoken most effectively through this sound vibration, which we just sang. This Hare Krishna mantra is most recommended. So simple, anyone can chant anywhere. Doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't make any difference. In prison, in hospital, wherever you are, we can chant. On the road, anywhere. When I first heard the Hare Krishna mantra in 1970, I didn't start chanting then. We heard on the music program on television. Then in the football stadium, they were playing it during the interval. And then at a musical called Hair, which I attended in London in 1970, I think. And then I heard it, you could say, from more of a source in 1971, from those who were doing it. And then I began to chant without even meeting them. I never saw a member of the Hare Krishna movement. We started chanting Hare Krishna, walking on the street, hitchhiking, we used to hitchhike everywhere. Hitchhiking, chanting Hare Krishna, going to, when I started a job, going to work on a bicycle, chanting Hare Krishna. In between things, chanting. It was so, what can we say? It was just so satisfying at that stage to the self. Even though with little knowledge, with no association, but still the relationship was there. With this chanting, the sound vibration and the effect on our consciousness. If we do nothing else, at least we can chant Hare Krishna and bring auspiciousness to the world. The sound of the holy name, or any holy vibration, come to that, purifies the atmosphere, the environment. It has a beneficial effect on people's consciousness as well as their own. Purifying. Well, time flies, and it's now 8 o'clock, almost, 2 minutes to 8. And we don't want to keep you late. So if anyone would like to ask any questions, please do.
Question. With the dualities that we deal with, how can we maintain like a positive attitude and try to remember to keep ourselves in devotional service throughout our daily activities?
Did you say in the duality that we live in?
Yes, like, what we face in our daily...
In your daily lives, yeah.
Yes.
We all have that in different places. Some of us may be working, some may be studying, some may be unemployed or whatever it's called. Some may be living here, some may be students, some may be men, some may be women, some may be whatever we are considered to be, or we consider ourselves to be, or whatever we're kind of doing. We certainly do face various whatever, dualities is the word to use, different variations, different associations. Things sometimes disturb us, we get tired, and sometimes we're irritable, and sometimes things just don't go right. And sometimes somebody gives us a hard time for no unknown reason to us. Sometimes we get into trouble. Sometimes things seem to go well. Sometimes things seem to go all different directions. And it's easy to get carried away by these different situations. So how to remain undisturbed, is that what you mean?
Yes.
How to remain undisturbed in all these things. You may be living in a house and everyone else in the house is drinking or smoking or watching or making noises or just don't like you or whatever it may be. All kinds of difficult situations we may be faced with. Sometimes we're vegetarian in the house, no one else is a vegetarian, or different things, maybe many things. How not to be disturbed by all of that? Well, this is, of course, a question which I guess most people would like to know the answer to. There are some mechanical methods that people usually adopt. There may be certain, let's say, habitual or regulated things which may help from the physical or mental platform. There are some medical things, and there are some physical things, but our approach is a little different. One may do that too, even utilizing sometimes. Some people have to use medical, maybe for some reasons. They may have to. Preferably not, but sometimes it's necessary. But from the physical point of view, most people nowadays, the lifestyle we live is not so natural as it could be, to say the least. We live in a big city like New York. Sometimes we don't walk much. We're always in a car or a metro or a subway or something like that. We sit down most of the day on a chair in front of a computer, or maybe you're not doing that, but a lot of people are. It's not a very natural lifestyle. You're watching. Look at the lifestyle. Just the other day, we were asking something, and the students were saying that most of the night they stay up watching or playing games on their mobile. You know this, what do they call this? I don't know. But it's amazing how much people are tuned in. The zombie, I watched this one, somebody gave me this thing for a 5-minute skip called Zombie, of how much people are literally monitored practically by their mobile phones nowadays. So many people. Selfies, WhatsApping, Facebooking, going on games, so many things. All this really makes life very, very unbalanced. People haven't got a balanced upbringing. Their diet sometimes so much garbage, and watching so many things, and hearing so many things, and mistreating each other. So much abuse is there. So many things. It's really difficult. We're disturbed before you start. You don't have to do anything. You know, just the ether itself is disturbed. All the electromagnetic waves, all this modern technology, it's all in the ether. That affects our brain. It affects us. Very difficult not to be. You try your very best to try to create a nice environment and live a simple life, but we're still living in an atmosphere which is pervaded with all kinds of unstable and instability and many negative vibrations, so many. So our process is of how not to be disturbed. So yes, I was going to mention one physical thing, simple exercise. People don't always do that. You don't have to go to a gym and spend your money. Simply walking is such a breathing air. Walking, eating simply or healthily according to your nature, all that can help from the physical and the mental plane, but that's not enough even still. We try to, as much as we can, of course, choose situations which are most compatible. But the real process is our remembering or our understanding how everything, no matter what it is, everything that exists, whether it's what we call good or whether we call it bad, is a combination of the material energies working in front of us. And we're apart from that. Let's give an example. If you watch the television, and on the television there is give a simple down-to-earth example. You're a basketball fan, and you're watching the basketball, and your team is playing. And when they score, you become very happy and excited. And when the opposition score, you become depressed, or you become upset, or not happy. Your emotions are controlled by what you see on the television. It may be a fiction movie, and one's whole emotions can become carried away with a very love scene or a horror scene or whatever scene it may be. You feel very sad, or you're very happy. We're controlled by it because why? We identify with it. We identify with that situation. Whereas your pet dog sat next to you, you may be getting very excited watching that movie. But the dog is wondering, what's wrong with my master? Why is he or she getting so excited about, what is it? They can't, if a dog comes on the screen, maybe the dog will get excited because it can identify with it. It's identification. If we see that, without this understanding of the nature of the self apart from the material body and the workings around us, it's very difficult not to be disturbed. We can reduce the disturbance. The more we understand the nature of the self, the less we're naturally disturbed by what we see around us or what goes on around us. We may still act in this world without that disturbance, no doubt. But the more we're self-realized or spiritually realized, the less we'll be disturbed by what goes on around us. Otherwise, it's just a juggling, balancing act going on, trying to balance things up and not be so disturbed. Take some medicine or drug, try to forget about it, or do something to counteract it, do something to balance things up. It's not the actual solution because we're still basically prone to the same problem. Take away the conditions, the problem's the same. We're in illusion. We're false identity. The whole problem in the world is false identity. We identify with being American or Russian or English or Chinese or Indian, whatever it is. And because of that, we relate to others accordingly, or whatever. This is false identity. We're not this body. That's the first basic principle. As long as we think we're the body, there's no absolute solution to this. You try to choose a situation where your bodily conditioning is most comfortable. But it's still a bodily condition. They say you may win the rat race, but you're still a rat. We're still in the material world. We're still an illusion. So to understand the nature of the self, apart from this duality around us, to rise above it, so to speak. It's like a storm is going on. If you rise above the clouds, you're not in the storm anymore. You can see it going on down below, but you're not affected by it. So being in this state of consciousness, it takes time. And again, the most recommended process to proceed in that direction is the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. So simple, so sublime. Anyone can chant. There's no hard and fast rules. Anywhere, anytime, any place. Anyone. And this helps us to remain a little less, even in our conditioned state now, to be a little less affected by the challenges that we have to face in life sometimes, to rise above it. Because whatever is going on the mental platform or the physical platform is just like we're watching a picture on the television. It feels like it's me. It feels like it's really me. When we watch the TV, you sometimes become so enamored, or whatever you watch, or mobile, or whatever it is. You become so enamored in what we're watching that we completely identify with it. We almost forget who we are or where we are sometimes. It completely takes over our consciousness. So, rising above or seeing ourselves apart from it, then the disturbance is not going to disturb us anymore. What goes on in our mind, in one sense, is no different than what goes on outside our body. It's just a bit closer to us and it's related to our karma and our interaction with what's outside. But in reality, it's not. It's not us. When we have a little understanding of that. And another aspect of this, although I don't know how much we would touch on it in this short span of time, is, say for instance, a young child. A young child's on the street. The child is lost. A young child, 2 years old, is lost. Naturally it's disturbed. Most likely he'll be crying and terrified. Maybe very fearful. What's happening here? It's completely lost in New York. Not a very comfortable position. But as soon as the parent comes along and the child holds the hand of the parents, the child is no longer disturbed. Maybe a little while, but after a while, no longer disturbed. Feels comfortable in its mother's hand or father's hand. Security. We lack security. So again, in the case where we will mention, in the process of bhakti, it means taking shelter of Krishna. Krishna is the name of the Supreme Person. Taking shelter. He's our best friend. He loves us. When we take shelter of him, we can become freed of the disturbance or the fear of this world, just like a child in the presence of his father doesn't fear the world around at all. He's not affected by it. Completely comfortable, knowing that his father will deal with it. So we're having that situation too. We're not alone. We're not alone. So amongst us also, having that association of persons whom we can relate with, persons we can spend time with, who help us to become a little bit more self-realized, a little bit more unaffected by the duality of this world. Helps a lot. And there are many, many other things we could mention, details in that regard. You could go on and on. Everyone has a different experience, and everything has its relevance according to time and circumstance. But basically speaking, false identity and insecurity as a consequence are, as long as they're there, there's no real solution. There may be some temporary solutions, some time solutions. There may be some like painkillers that we can take, intoxication or of some kind or another, which may help, or just some thing to balance it up, or try to forget about it or something. But it's still there. The illusion is still there. Come out of illusion and into the light of real spiritual realization. Hare Krishna. Anything else?